So I thought I'd make a bit of a different kind of video. I've never really done this before, but I thought I'd do something that's completely unplanned and off the cuff. But you might have noticed I've been offline the past 3 months from social media entirely. And that's pretty much everything except for my personal Facebook. I've been talking to friends. That's about it. My team's still been posting the podcast every single week, but I've intentionally stayed offline lately. So I wanted to take a break from everything for a few reasons. One, mostly because you might have noticed that I put out a video earlier this week around burnout. And this is a topic that I'm very familiar with, but it's also one that I've experienced a lot over the past year and a half. And I've never really had a chance to slow down. It's always just been constant pace. And about 3 months ago, I hit a wall where I hadn't had a chance to really take a break. And even when I did notice that, yeah, I've hit my limits, I'm burning out, I just launched a new technical director course. And so because of that, I couldn't slow down, which meant that I had to soldier through and keep moving forward. And I'm really proud of the course. It's the best course I've ever made in my entire life. And I'm so proud of what everyone who's gone through it has accomplished. But at the same time, it has been the most intense project that I've taken on. And that's kind of saying something at the same time. But I think this is important to share because my plan for the rest of the year is going to be to slow things down a little bit. And I'm hoping to reopen the technical director course at the end of the year so that way we can do registration for 2022. But I'm going to be solely focused on that as well as putting up new content, things like that as well. I'm not going to be doing any production work, any films or games or anything like that for the remainder of the year. And that really feels good to me to be able to slow down a bit. And the reason I want to slow down is actually to stop and reflect on what's next for me. So I've only ever done this once in my life where I've taken time out to pause and reflect and think about like what the next stage of my life is going to be. And so this video, I want it to be both a chance for me to kind of update you on what I've been doing as well as what's going on in my life, but also for this to be a chance for you to think about this as well, about whether this is a good time for you to maybe do the same. So just to give some context into my backstory and how that applies to me now. In 2009, I owned my own studio in Australia. We had about 30 plus employees and worked on loads of really cool projects. And the studio grew pretty rapidly and it was already set to be bought out by a major studio in the US. And that way we could expand the studio further and be doing a lot more both in the US as well as globally. Now, at that time, I was 29 years old. I'd been working in the industry roughly about 15 years and I'd always been about rapid growth in my career, rapid growth in my business as well. And the studio I was running was a huge success, and we're going to get bigger and bigger. That was inevitable. So part of me, though, wanted to remain free just a little bit longer and not really get tied down in my late 20s. And especially because me becoming a partner of this bigger studio, it'd pretty much mean that I'd be making a lifelong commitment or for at least the next decade or two. So that to me was just something where I kind of, in all honesty, felt like I'd love to be irresponsible for a little bit longer before I kind of made that bigger commitment. So that was really a hard decision for me, and I gave my team months of notice about the direction that I felt like I was going in, so that way they knew where things were going as well. But I decided to kind of take a step back and look for a bit of change in my life from being a studio owner, from doing all this stuff, and kind of look at like what was next for me. And I did something that was new to me, which was I spent the next 2 months flying all over the world, just interviewing at studios, mostly in the US, EU, Canada, and a couple in Japan as well. And that was really fun just to kind of get wined, dined, and flown around, but also just more to kind of see what opportunities kind of aligned with where I wanted things to go. And in the end, I had loads of offers, but they all looked pretty much identical. It was either going to be a lot of VFX soup positions or it was going to be heads of department positions. In fact, one of these positions was for a very big company where I would be in charge of 300 plus artists, and that did not appeal to me at all. So meanwhile, in the background, my producer had mentioned a few times that there'd been this game company that had been contacting me over and over, and he'd been pushing back at my request saying Allan's not interested. And when I go back to Australia, they were like, can we just get Allan on the phone for a minute? We just want to talk to him and then we'll leave him alone. And it was pretty interesting when I finally got on the phone because the opportunity that they described to me sounded completely different to everything else out there. All the other positions were all film-based. All the other positions were more just doing supervisor work. And this was actually going to be for Activision in Vancouver in a pretty specific role mainly working behind the scenes, helping kind of pick the technology that would go into their future engines, as well as mentoring a lot of their team, as well as kind of coming up with R&D solutions for how we would tackle certain kind of like special case scenarios in the games we're doing. So all of that was really cool. It was really interesting compared to everything else. And this was going to be for the game Prototype that came out. And there's also two other really big IPs that I don't know if I can talk about, but they would have been amazing, like so amazing. And they looked amazing. So I ended up taking the job. I ended up moving to Vancouver, and not long after that was the Blizzard and Activision merger, and that was a complete reorg of the company. So that was a $90 billion deal, the biggest game merger in history. And I remember going to SIGGRAPH that year. I was speaking at a few events at SIGGRAPH. And when I came back, 150 people had been laid off. I had like photos of my entire floor, just everyone was gone. And at the same time, like no one really knew who I was because like several of my bosses were all laid off. And so suddenly I was moved into the position that at the time I hadn't really been interested in, which was I was now supervising the effects for Prototype. And so I had a small team of people, and we were doing all the non-interactive sequences for the game, just doing all the, essentially the real-time cinematics, doing all the effects. And the previous team was about 6 months behind, and we managed to finish about 6 months ahead of schedule. So that was really cool to be able to put together a really cool team and be able to just blast through the deadlines and get through it all. But it also meant that having axed the other two games, there was literally nothing on the horizon for me for the next 6 months until we kind of hit delivery of the game. And the team itself was amazing. I loved everyone there. I loved Vancouver, but at the same time, the culture had changed a little bit, and so I decided to leave. I decided to go to ILM and go back into working at film. So I wanted to bring all this up because of what's going on now. And that to me was a really interesting exercise to be able to take a moment to reflect back on what's important and something that I don't really get to do very often. And I'm usually the person who's very aggressive with my career. I'm more about what's the next best decision. I'm trying to focus on building relationships and trying to move into new areas. So I'm always focused on making that decision about what's next based on career, relationship, what's the best opportunity, what's the smartest thing to do. And it's so rare to actually think about like, well, what's next for me? What do I really want? And really kind of thinking about what I'm passionate about or where I want to invest my time. It's more about what's the logical decision to make. So since I was 14, 15, most of my career has always been focused on forward momentum, aggressive growth. And I would always take the hardest jobs. I'd always be focused on doing 9/11 projects. In other words, like putting out all the fires, trying to rescue projects that had gone to hell. And I kind of loved that pace. And that's the kind of reputation I pretty much built. I liked the stress, I loved the pace, and I don't really regret anything. But at the same time, now things are a little bit different. Now I'm pushing 40. I'm still busier than ever, but I'm also about 350 episodes into the podcast. I have a mentorship I'm running. I do a lot of public speaking. I run multiple projects. I have a team that I also manage. I do consulting and I also do a lot of production projects as well. So I'm typically pretty busy and pretty worn out all the time. And it's a little bit different to when I was 18, 21, 25, where I loved doing that stuff because I worked hard to get to where I am. I've won awards, I've gotten recognition in different areas, and I'm saying all that because at the time that was really important to me, trying to get all the clout and do all these big things. And that's something that did drive me. As me being younger, I was definitely driven by trying to get out there and make as much damage as I can wherever I can. And that was always kind of my drive. So like I said, I don't regret anything. I've worked hard to get to where I am. I've worked with dozens of my favorite directors. I've made friendships with a lot of them as well. But I'm also at a point where I want to take a step back. I want to have a moment to reflect, I guess, on what's truly important to me. Like, what do I want to be doing 5 years, 10 years from now? Who do I want to spend my time with? And how do I want to grow in these positions? I think it's important to be able to look back on these moments. Like for me, what do I want to be able to look back on and be proud of the most? So I think this is really important for all of us to do. It's really critical to see where our path is right now and whether we're on the right path. So I know one thing that's important to me, and that's mentoring other people, helping them hit their true potential. That's something that's driven me my whole career, is being able to give back, but really see results, really help everyone get to where they want to be in their career. Another thing is leadership. being a solo operator has its limitations, but being able to push a team to their true potential, that's limitless. That's something that excites me, is being able to raise the bar for other people who work under me. When we're on a team together, being able to utilize them rather than trying to be the person who's doing it all and thinking that that's a good solid solution. So working on dozens of projects and burning myself out, doing all these different productions, that doesn't interest me as much these days. But I do want to focus on one thing, and I want to get really behind it. Something that really inspires me is having a team and being able to really push them to do amazing things. So that excites me, and getting behind a single focused project is really something that for me I'd love to take ownership of and really be able to push it to the limits of what it can be. So as of tomorrow, I'm taking the rest of the year off from production entirely. I'm going to be taking some time to think about what's next for me. I'm going to sit down with some friends and talk about a few different opportunities and just see what things are starting to bubble to the surface. So maybe have some sit downs with some studios and decide what the next 5 years, 10 years might look like for me. And I'm excited. I'm really excited about this. And I'm still planning to put out free content. The podcast, we've not missed a week in years, so we're still going strong. I've got an interview with Paul Lambert, the VFX supervisor for Dune, coming out Tuesday. And there's so many other things that in terms of content and doing stuff for fun, the stuff that I'm passionate about, I'll still be doing that, but I won't be doing any production work. I'm still going to be opening the technical director certification course end of December for registration for 2022. That's going to be a big thing that I'm really excited to get behind as well. And I want to devote a lot of time to the students going through the course. But the main thing for me, and the reason that I thought this would be good to talk about, like I said, besides 12 years ago, I haven't really had that moment to slow down, take a moment to reflect on where I am and where it's all heading. And I'm excited for this. But even so, 2020, 2021, they've been nonstop. And I've been dealing with heavy burnout all year long. And there's not really been a moment to take a break or really to slow things down. So to me, this is well overdue. And I wanted to give an update to where I've been and why I haven't really been posting lately. And I'm going to start posting again. The podcast will continue to go out like every other week. But I also wanted to share where my head's been at and also what I'm wrestling with burnout while still going 500 miles an hour. But also how I'm excited about what's next for me. And I wanted to give some insight for you guys a bit about how aggressive progression, like really being focused on driving your career, is a great thing. But sometimes you need to take that step back. You need to be able to reflect on where you're headed. That's also just as important. Because it's easy to be like ticking the boxes and feeling like, yeah, I'm crushing it. But what's it worth if ultimately you're going to look back and not be as happy with some of the decisions of time where that was made, like where that's allotted? Because there's definitely been times where it's just been 100% focused on career, no time for anybody else. And like I said, you're going to get to a point in your life where you want to start thinking about, well, what's the meaning of life? Who do I want to spend my time with? And starting to reorganize things a little bit to be more focused on creating new memories and doing stuff like that. I think that that's just as important, more important than work a lot of the time. So I've always been a big advocate for goals, but also about making good career decisions is also important, about chasing what you want. So now I'm going to turn it over to you. Like, what are your goals? Where are you headed? What are you passionate about? I think the expression, like taking time to smell the roses, like I like that expression because we need that from time to time. And I'm curious, like for a lot of us, we get so focused in our career. Are you ever taking a step back to really think about what it is that you find exciting, what it is that you find fulfilling, and where it is that your time's going? And are you taking time out to really spend it with the people you care about and on the things that make you the most fulfilled? So like I said, ticking all the boxes, padding your resume, collecting awards, and all that aggressive momentum can be great for the career. Or what's great for you to be able to look back on and feel fulfilled, like, yeah, like I've been killing it, but more importantly, it's been giving me the freedom I want to do the things that I want. And it's important because the more that you do this, the more that you can reflect and have that bigger picture idea of what's going on. It's going to give you more opportunity to be able to look at the big picture and really get behind something big for the long haul that you can really invest in. And I like the term ownership. It doesn't mean that you're taking ownership of a project, but it means that instead you're having complete ownership of the responsibilities that you put into the projects that you're on. And that's, again, like something that excites me is having complete ownership over the responsibilities of doing something amazing on the next thing that I touch. Instead of it being about get it done, ship it, move to the next thing, and do that while another dozen other projects are going on, instead getting behind something for the long haul and doing something long term and being able to see the growth and be able to enjoy the journey along the way. So that's it. Hopefully this made sense, and I hope that some of you got something from this. I know it's not the typical video that I would ever put out, but like I said, in between now and the end of the year, I'm going to be heading on my own journey. I'm going to make sure to update you guys on what I've been doing, and I'm really excited. So like I said, I've never really made a video like this that's a lot more personal, but I thought it would be good to share with you what I've been doing, as well as where things are headed, but also even discussing just the topic of dealing with burnout lately and still having to soldier on through all of that. So like I said, still expect new videos to come out regularly again, finally, as well as loads of new exciting podcast interviews I'm going to be doing, career videos, and I'm also hoping to put out some really cool tutorials once I get back from Vegas, and that's going to be fun. And of course, I'll announce the registration for Technical Director certification when we get into that in late November, December. And in the meantime, stay tuned, and thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where your head's at, like where you think you're going to be heading next year, and whether you agree, like taking a moment to take a step back and reflect on where you are and where you're going, if that gives you a bit more clarity on whether it's the right decisions, or maybe it is time for some changes in your life, your career, reprioritizing things as well. So that's it for me. My message to you would be to take some time out to reflect on everything and think about what is passionate to you. Who knows? Maybe down the line we'll end up working together in the future. And in the meantime, I'm taking this week off. I'm heading to Vegas to SEMA, the world's biggest car show, just there to support my wife. But it's also a chance for me to think about everything going on, and I'm going to continue that from there when I get back, start scheduling some meetings and to see what happens. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps. I hope this is just some useful insight for a lot of you. And hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll have some exciting news about what I've decided on or where I'm going to be going next. So bye for now.